In this demo, we'll be attaching the undercollar to the shell of the jacket. So the first thing we're going to do is stay stitch our neckline on the other collar. So just stay stitch it at a 1/2 inch. You should not have trimmed any of the hair canvas out of the neckline on the undercollar. Okay, so now that we've stay stitched the neckline, we're going to match up our center backs. So remember, you want the seam allowance to be inside the jacket, so you'll be putting right sides together basically. Alright, right side of the jacket, right side of the undercollar. Line up your center back seam allowance and put a pin in. Now come around, you should have shoulder notches on your undercollar that you can line up with the shoulder seams of the jacket. There should be a little ease in your undercollar. So if it seems a little bigger, that's okay. And then pin out to the edge of the jacket. Do the same thing on the other side now. Find your shoulder notch on the undercollar and line it up with the shoulder seam on the jacket. And then work your way down. The way the collar attaches to the jacket in this example is a little more complex. There's a corner we have to sew there. I think many of you do not have that corner. Find your point E, or the point where your collar and your lapel separate, and line those up. You should have them clearly marked, both on your collar and your lapel. There should be a notch there, and pin those together. I'm clipping this because I have a corner here. Again, many of you may not have this kind of corner. And so you know that that was stay stitch where I clipped. I never would have clipped and had it up and stay stitched. Now we're going to go ahead and stitch the undercollar right onto the jacket. Because my ease is in the undercollar, I'm going to have that side down against my feed dogs. Because those feed dogs on the sewing machine will help ease the that little bit of extra fabric right into the jacket. No problem. This is permanent back tack at the beginning and end, okay? I'm starting right at my point E. Again, that's right where my undercollar and jacket separate. Or sorry, undercollar and lapel separate. So I started right there. You don't want to start too far. You want to make sure you start right at that point and not too far over or under. And then go ahead and continue to stitch. Be careful when you come to the shoulder seams. They can be a little difficult. You might have to fiddle with the fabric and smooth it out a little bit. But just go slowly, inch by inch, making sure everything stays lined up, and adjusting and smoothing as you go. Again, the collar will be eased a little bit into the jacket. And there we go, it's sewn in. You can see here my basting of my roll line. Okay, I'm checking my point here. But that white basting right there, that's my roll line. You can see it on the undercollar and on the side with the lapel. And they blend in, it lines up pretty well. It just goes right into each other. So that worked out well. Alright, now we're going to press open our seams. This here is where the lapel and the collar are sewn together. I'm sorry this seems kind of choppy, but I really tried to speed it up so you don't have to watch all this slowly. Okay, now I'm pressing open the neckline. Be careful when pressing that you don't press the roll line of your collar, of your undercollar. You don't want to press that flat when you're pressing. So be very careful to only be pressing your seam allowance. Okay, I'm moving up into the seam allowance now, and I'm pressing that open. Okay, so notice I'm going to start clipping. This is the seam allowance of my center back. I'm clipping out where above the stitching line. So that's the seam allowance of the center back. I clipped out the center back seam allowance that was above the stitching line to reduce that bulk. Okay, I'm going to do that at the shoulder seam too. Right now I'm clipping, so this is the neckline, the back neckline. And I'm clipping out the seam allowance of the shoulders. Okay, when you're clipping your neckline, like I just was, you want to clip right down to your stitching line, but not through it. Okay, again, I'm clipping out the seam allowance there. But before that, I was clipping, because the neckline is round, and we need to press that open. So in able to press that open, we have to clip into it a couple times. So clip sparingly, all right? Notice I didn't clip where it was flat, just in the back portion of my jacket where I really had that more round neckline, I had to clip, okay? If you don't have to clip, then don't do it, but everybody will have to do some clipping in the back neckline there. And again, be careful when pressing, not to press your roll line flat, okay? Just making sure this is nice and flat. Okay, that looks good. And then I need another clip here. So just see if your seam allowance isn't staying open, it looks like it's pulling, then you'll have to clip, okay? But really, most clipping will just be at that back neckline area. Okay, I'm just going to look at it on the form, see how it looks real quick. It looks like it's going together well. And I think it's looking pretty good. Yep, it's falling correctly. That's looking good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is trim out the hair canvas in the neckline, okay? You're just trimming the hair canvas, nothing else. Don't cut at your wool at all, all right? So just trim the hair canvas down to the stitching line. And you want to do that on both sides, okay? Be careful if you clipped it, it's easy to clip into your wool by accident. Remember, you just want to clip out the hair canvas. All right. Now the reason we pressed this open first before we clipped out the hair canvas, because had we removed the hair canvas and then tried to press it open, sometimes that hair canvas will stand up the little bit that's left and it will cause the seam not to be pressed open as easily. So I like to press it open first, and then I like to trim out the hair canvas. Okay, so this will reduce a lot of bulk. And the neckline will lay open easier. That seam allowance that we're pressing open, we want to stay open. Okay, we don't want to fold one way or the other. We want to stay open. Okay, so now I'm giving it another quick press, and it's staying open much better now that I trimmed out that hair canvas as well. Again, be careful not to press your roll line at all. All right, there we go. Now, we're going to catch stitch that seam allowance open. So you have the seam allowance on the jacket side and on the undercollar side. We're going to catch both sides of that seam allowance open. So right here, I'm starting, before I catch stitch it open, I'm actually basting the seam allowance open to make it easier to catch stitch. So I'm doing a running basting stitch through both sides of the seam allowance, okay? That way it stays open, especially where we clipped. That all wants to fold back. So just do a running basting stitch to keep it open. All right. And again, you're going to do that on both sides of the seam allowance. Okay, made it to one end. Now I'm going to come back the other way. Alright, there we go. It's all basted. Both sides of the seam allowance. You can see how flat it is now because I basted it open. Alright. Now we'll do the catch stitch. We'll catch stitch both sides. Alright, so you're catch stitching that seam allowance right to the hair canvas. Don't go through to the wool on the hair canvas. Just you're catching the wool seam allowance and then you're just catching a little bit of the hair canvas and that's it. And that will hold that seam allowance open and keep it from moving or sliding from side to side. It will reduce bulk because it will help it lay flat. So you'll do, again, both sides of that. So here's one side finishing up. Let's tie this off. All right. There we go. And we'll do the other side as well. Okay, so here's coming to the end. And we now catch stitched. The seam allowance is open. Once we've done that, we can take out the basting that we did. All right. Oh, I'm going to catch stitch because I have a wide lapel here. The part that's sewn together, the collar and lapel part, I'm going to catch stitch that open as well. If you have a much smaller seam here, you might not have to do it. Just take a look at it. If it looks like it's pretty, if it looks like it needs it, it's not staying open very well, go ahead and catch stitch it. Okay, and I catch stitch both sides open. Okay. Now with the neckline catch stitched open and the lapel collar part catch stitched open, we can take the basting out that we put in to hold those seams open. So go ahead and just pull them right out. Top one and the bottom one. There we go. Your under collar is now attached to the jacket shell. Looks good. And if you have a form, go ahead and put it on there. You can see how it looks. Or you try it on yourself if you're fitting it to yourself or know it fits you. Make sure it's rolling on the roll line. Your collar should be. Okay. Done.